The US has launched a new digital offensive against Russia, or is it a counter-offensive? Regardless, it's an act of cyber warfare. In a bombshell story on June the 15th, the New York Times reported that over the past 3 months, US intelligence has intensified its, quote, digital incursions in Russia's electric power grid, which began as early as 2012. The report, based on 3 months of interviews, claims that the purpose of the operations is to signal Russia in response to its allegedly constant cyber breaches against the US. What does the article, if accurate, tell us about the US increasing cyber assertiveness against certain countries? Could China be, or is China already, the next target? I'm joined in the studio by Professor Xiang from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Einar Tangen, a current affairs commentator, and from Moscow, Pavel Felgenhauer, a Russian political and defense analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Now, in response to the article, President Trump tweeted on Monday that the story in the New York Times about the US escalating attacks on Russia's power grid is fake news. And the failing New York Times knows it. They should immediately release their sources, which, if they exist at all, which I doubt, are phony. Times must be held fully accountable. And in a previous tweet, he also said this is a virtual act of treason by a once great paper and accused the NYT of being the enemy of the people. So, Einar, exactly what was written in the story that got him so angry?
The truth.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Donald Trump wants to appear strong, and he has some very predilection for Russia. I don't know if it's for Putin or for the state, but he has been consistently very, very easy on Russia, to the point where his own national security team doesn't trust him to be in the loop. And that is a stinging indictment. The idea that the leader of a country is not trusted by the intelligence agency, and I mean, they have reason, to do so.
Because he would talk about it in public meetings with foreign officials.
He's released sensitive information. He's thrown them on the bus a number of times. He says he doesn't believe them. I mean, it goes on and on. But the result has been a crisis in the administration.
But does he have a point there that the newspaper shouldn't really be revealing the secret operations of a country in the aim of protecting the national security of his own country?
The fact is that the American press is supposed to report what they hear. Now, obviously, there are sources in the intelligence community and probably in the White House, because both were named, who have felt that they need this information to be out. And that tells you what I'm saying is there is a crisis in the executive office where there are people who are career, all right, in the bureaucracy, and they feel that they cannot trust the current president. This is more frightening than almost anything out there.
Okay, Professor Liu, what did this report reveal that is most significant to you?
Actually, we have no way to verify whether this story is true or not, but it's indicative for the ongoing, ever-escalating cyber war between major countries. And it's also, for me, it's also predictive of the future risks between major countries. Actually, cyber attack and counter attack are even more dangerous than the nuclear war, because a nuclear war can be calculable, but actually there are too many unknowns now in the cyberspace, and we don't know what will happen in the future.
So basically what we're saying is what we hear from this report is the stepping up on the US side of its counter-offensives. Or are we seeing, or from your understanding, has the US been always so active, maybe not on the governmental side, but on the private hacking side?
Generally speaking, most cyber attacks are taken by non-state actors so far. But now, if an SA and a US Cyber Command are involved in this kind of state-sponsored attack, That's the most dangerous thing to this world.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, the truth is, 20 years ago, the NSA was caught loading malware onto hard drives that were used in almost all computers. And this wasn't something that was disputed. This was a fact.
There
They
were
created a
pictures and-
backdoor into all of the hard drives that were produced in the US.
What's the difference then between now and then?
There is no difference.
There is no difference, only that this is more out in the open and
No, the
even further stepped up?
Yeah, the Seagate hard drive thing was kind of uncovered. This was leaked, and that is the real difference.
Okay. All right, let me go to my guest in Moscow, Pavel Felgenhauer. Mr. Felgenhauer, how do you look at the significance of this story and the implications it could have for future relationship between major countries such as the United States and Russia, and between the United States and China?
Well, in Moscow right now, no one really knows for sure is it happened or not. The Russian grid companies, which are officially responsible for cybersecurity of the grid, haven't reported. It was officially said that no one has reported any kind of cyber attacks coming in. And of course, this was not actually a cyber attack per se, but inserting malware that into the code that may be activated sometime in the future. And that's most likely why the story was leaked, because it's kind of shot over the bows for Russia that if you begin again to intervene from America coming in, that you begin to intervene with the American elections, that beware, there's going to be problems. There were some reports that Russia, in the United States, that Russia may try and switch off the grid in some key states to affect the elections on election day, and that should not happen. The Kremlin said that this is potentially very dangerous. There were sources in the Russian intelligence community that yes, there were different kind of attacks, but cyber attacks happening coming from America, but this was very general, not about the grid, but in general there are cyber attacks, but Russia has successfully defeated them all. So most likely in Moscow, no one knows for sure, and now they're going to be looking into their programming in the grid, say, in other places. And most likely they're looking all the time. But if they don't find anything, it doesn't mean that it's not there. So this creates a lot of uncertainty and a lot of additional tension between Moscow and Washington.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump issued a new directive last September entitled National Security Presidential Memoranda 13, which is said to have relaxed rules on the use of cyber attacks. And this new directive, according to John Bolton, the President's National Security Advisor, empowers the Defense Department to carry out offensive cyber strikes without having to go through interagency decision process. So, Mr. Felgenhauer, what do you think are the potential risks associated with the relaxation of rules for offensive cyber activities by the United States?
Well, right now there's cyber and information warfare happening between East and West on a major scale on both sides. I've been at the conference last week in Riga, NATO conference, and they were talking about information and cyber warfare. It's if unofficially we're not at war with each other, in this sphere of cyber and information, the war is happening already, and not only between Russia and the West, it's also China and the United States and other nations and different non-governmental groups also taking part. This is Israel and Iran. So this is a field where everyone right now, there's no rules. And the effect of cyber attacks potentially could be devastating, especially if military targets are more or less covered and sometimes not at all connected to the internet. The infrastructure isn't. It's very vulnerable.
Let me go back to my guest here in the studio, Professor Liu, because just a couple of days ago we actually talked about it, according to an annual report released by China's National Computer Network Emergency Response Technical Team. 3.3 million computers on the Chinese mainland last year were controlled by more than 14,000 Trojan or botnet command and control servers in the United States. That's an increase of 90% compared to the previous year. So is China already the US's next target?
Actually, we have been in this risk all the time, and now you know the NYT report is about incursion into the infrastructure. And you know, modern infrastructure is heavily relying on computerized control system, and it's crucial to people's life. So we have to be prepared, and I believe Chinese government is very well prepared for all these kind of attacks.
Yeah, Einar, what is your take on what we're going to see? Are we really... Well, according to Mr. Felgenhauer, we already see a cyber warfare going on. Is this going to get a lot more nasty?
Well, to me, the irony is that the U.S. is accusing China through 5G of, being a group that would come into other countries and do exactly what they're doing or alleged to be doing to Russia. I mean, the irony, I don't know how it escapes people that, you're accusing people, other countries of doing exactly what you're doing.
They're saying they're doing a counteroffensive, okay?
They're saying
they're under attack or to deter someone else.
Yes, but this is Donald Trump's point. He says, I'm going to punch you first because I think you're going to punch me. All right, and this is absolutely ridiculous. This is just rationalization of the actions that you've been taking for a long period of time.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I hope that's not the logic behind it, but if so, that would be really tragic. Well, we're going to leave it there, and we'll see. Professor Liu Xiang from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Einar Tangen, a current affairs commentator, and from Moscow, Pavel Felgenhauer, a Russian political and defense analyst.